I'll send that to you with the photos again as soon as Dale, or as soon as Grant sends me the pictures, and then we'll be finished until next time.
Excuse me, this is Cindy Doyle. I thought we promised the parents that we weren't going to publish the kids' pictures with their names for security reasons.
No, they actually had to sign a waiver for that as part of the Survey Monkey when they input their kids' photos into the survey. So they did sign a waiver allowing us to do that, I believe.
Thank you.
Ken Davis, I still have your masks at my office that you paid for. Do you want me to just mail them to you, or do you want to pop by and pick them up?
Hey guys, sorry.
Tom Sullivan says that I said, Tom, are you coming to Rotary? Are you okay today? And he said no. On a text I just did with him.
Okay.
Sounds like we need to pray for Tom.
I just spoke with him. He says he's in quite a bit of pain, but he's not taking visitors. So I agree. We need to keep him in our thoughts and prayers. And he's not doing well, he said.
And Ed True is going to do the invocation, pledge, and four-way, Tanya.
All right. Ready to go?
All good. Ready when you are.
Okay, good. You're back on.
Yep, we're good.
All right. And are you a host?
Yep, I am all good. I'm broadcasting to Facebook now.
Okay. All right. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to Rotary. I'm Tanya Hawkins, and welcome to the Rotary Club of O'Fallon. Today we have Ed True, who's going to join us for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, well, everyone, please stand if you can for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, please be seated because my invocation is going to be about what's our time worth? Imagine there's a bank that credits your account. The account allows you to keep no cash balance and every evening cancels whatever part of the amount you have failed to use during the day. What should you do? Draw out every cent? Of course. Well, everyone has such a bank. Its name is time. Every morning we are credited with 86,400 seconds in accounts for the next 24 hours. By the next morning, whatever amount of time we have failed to invest in good purposes is written off as a loss. No balance is carried over. Overdrafts are not allowed. Each day a new account opens for us and the records of the previous day are burned. If we fail to use the day's deposits, the loss is ours. No going back and no drawing against tomorrow. We must live in the present day's deposits. We can't carry forward any amounts. We must invest our time to get the most out of our day. So that's my thoughts for the day. Now, for the way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Is it, is it, will bring goodwill and better friendships? Will be beneficial to all concerned? And then number 5, it will be fun.
Thank you so much, Ed. All right. I'd like to welcome our visiting Rotarians and visitors. Greg Yank, I understand you have a visitor today. Would you like to introduce him?
I do. My guest today is Ryan Ackerman. He is on the call. He has a beard. I met Ryan through his dad, who did some work for us here, and Ryan indicated an interest in attending our Rotary Club. Ryan is an insurance agent with Country Financial. He lives in Belleville, but his office is here in O'Fallon. Ryan has 3 kids. So Ryan, welcome to the Rotary Club of O'Fallon.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm excited to see what it's all about, and just, yeah, love to kind of see what's going on and see how I can help out.
Great. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you'll enjoy our program. I would also like to recognize our other visitors. We have Dale Yonker and Richard Costco, who are joining us for our Veterans Day program, as well as Keith Hawkins. Any other visitors or visiting Rotarians? Nope. Okay. Moving right along, Sheriff Ken.
I am here, and good afternoon to everyone. I will start off with my happy bucks. My daughter, you know, I'm always talking about my kids that can't get away from it. She got accepted into the PhD doctoral program and George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And so now I have 2 in a PhD program, and I don't have to pay for either one of them. So I think that's worth $5.
Wow.
Is there other happy bucks out there? Anyone with a happy buck?
I'll go next.
Dale. Go ahead, Rich.
Our son Eric, who has been stationed in England for the past 2 years, arrived back on U.S. soil on Saturday. He's going to be doing about 2 weeks of training out in Colorado. And then we get to see him for about 2 weeks before he heads to the scenic wonderland of Thule, Greenland. So he's heading up there in early December, but it's nice to have him back in the States, and Mama's really looking forward to seeing him. So I'll give $5 for that.
Thank you, Rich. More happy bucks.
I got one.
All right.
Well, this is Jim Simpson, and well, Tom Sullivan and I were actually neighbors there in St. Elizabeth's. He was having his knee replaced, and I was having my hip replaced. Sounds like I got the easier end of the deal, but I just wanted to say thanks. I found out once again, reaffirmed that the many blessings that I have, and the recovery's been super. I'm staying with a friend out in Aviston who happens to have a ranch style house with no stairs, although I was able to climb and descend 13 stairs there in the hospital 2 days after the surgery. But I've been very blessed this time around, and the pain is dissipating quickly, and I hope to be on the full recovery very soon.
And we wish you a happy and full recovery. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thanks.
Other happy books out there?
It's Dave Vale. I got one. This week, in a note of optimism, AARP and IRS sent out the tax books for those of us that will be do volunteer tax preparation this coming tax season. So we've got the stuff in the hopes that we're going to be able to get our annual certifications with the IRS, and then provide some service to people in our community. We haven't figured out how we're going to do that yet. That's going to be an interesting thing, but we're optimistic that we're going to be able to deliver that kind of service to the people in the O'Fallon community soon.
Well, thank you, and thank you for what you do. We'll work it out, but I'll get in to see you. Any other happy bucks?
Ken, this is Jill. I just sent 7 happy Venmo bucks on behalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 7-0. And gotta love it when we beat the Ravens. For those of you who don't know, my husband's family is from Pittsburgh, so we're huge Steelers fans in our house.
Woohoo, go Jill, that's great. Other happy bucks.
I've got 5 happy bucks for the Habitat House, our service project. In fact, we've captured a few Rotarians over there today, taking advantage of the sunshine to get the last of the siding on the front of the house and begin on the soffit and fascia along the rest of it. So the house is coming along very well, considering the late start due to COVID. But we're optimistic that we'll have our family into the house around New Year's.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Right now at this time, we need to really be out there pushing the habitats because there are a lot of needy people. So thank you for what you do.
Ken, Greg Yank, I have a happy buck that Ryan Ackerman is with us today. We'll see if he wants to come back after today's program.
So far, so good. So you're
I'm sure he will. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Anyone else?
Hey, this is Dale. I'll throw in 5 happy bucks. I'm just glad to be back and to see everybody's faces. For those who don't know, I don't want to get too graphic for Facebook, but I had to have some surgery on my esophagus over at Barnes, so I had to spend a couple of nights over there back in September. But I'm back to work and back to normal and back to eating a full regular diet, so everything's good.
Good deal.
Good deal. Congratulations. Thank you for sharing. So, any more happy bucks? People just
I have a
glad
happy
to be alive. Go for it.
I'm going to put 5 bucks in today. My husband and I went down and had dinner with some nice friends in Nashville over the weekend. So that was great. My husband is on my Rotary call today. I'm so excited. And if he intends to join, I'm going to be his sponsor. So back off, Rich.
Congratulations. Way to go. That's exciting.
No, I don't know if he will, but we're going to really make a case for it today. And then finally, this is my favorite, one of my favorite presentations of the year. Over the years, I've gotten to know so many of the Rotarians through the Veterans Day presentations. So I'm really excited to have the gentlemen here today that are going to talk about their lives as military pilots. And I'm also just so grateful to be in a club with some wonderful, wonderful veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank all veterans for their service and keeping us safe. So thank you for putting it all on the line. Any other happy bucks?
It's true. I've got one.
Go for it.
Okay, I got one for a Good Samaritan. On Saturday, I was up at Fort Paul's hospital with my cat, and I went to start my car to leave, and it wouldn't start. And when it was acting, I was pretty sure it was the battery. Anyway, the fellow next to me in his car heard it, and it wasn't starting. So I called USAA that I have to come and give me a jump start, and they told me it'd be, well, hopefully we'll be there in an hour. No. So anyway, he mentioned something to me, how long are they coming? And I told him, he said, well, let's see if somebody's got some jumper cables. And another car did, so we jumped it, so I didn't have to wait the hour. So I have a buck for that Good Samaritan that helped me out.
That's great. That's a great story. Any other happy bucks? Well, thank you all for sharing.
All right. So Grayson.
Yes. I will go ahead and launch what the trivia question is, but we're going to break out again. So I'll send those breakout rooms for you. But here's the question, so that way you can look at it before you go in. It's who can you blame for introducing singing to Rotary Club meetings, and what was his profession? So 4 different options there. I'll send you into a breakout room so that way you guys can kind of talk about it and catch up. And then we'll bring everybody back around probably 12:22, 12:23, somewhere in there. But I'll message it out. All right, here comes your invites. Oops, hold on one second. There we go. There's your invites. Casey, I'm going to send you to a breakout room here in a second. I'm sorry.
No problem. I just managed to finally pop in, so no problem.
Gotcha. Okay, you should have an invite to go to a breakout room on your screen.
Hey, Grayson, this is Ken Davis. I don't have a breakout room invite.
Let me go ahead and send you one. Did you see one pop up?
Nope.
Let's see. It should be at the bottom of your screen in your meeting controls. You try one more time.
There it is. Got it.
You're in a room with Jim Simpson. Good luck. Rick Van Etten, I just sent you a breakout room request. So if you would like to, you can join in on their conversation. Otherwise, we're going to bring them back here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, we're going through the. Yeah, okay. You can come down and.
Wow, it is a dead heat.
Yep, so far it looks like Tanya, it looks like you'll have to manage on your end. It keeps logging me out for some reason, so you've got the polls.
Okay.
So, Tanya, dead heat among all four?
They're pretty evenly, well, I don't know. Now it looks like, yeah, it's looking like Hiram is gonna, he's taking the lead right now. Yeah.
We couldn't vote. We couldn't vote while we were in our breakout. So when we came back, I could vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, that voting, isn't that voting, Dave, just almost instantaneous so that they see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. I see it on my end. Grayson, let's see. Grayson, can I make you? Wait, let me do that. Okay.
Let's see, it says I'm the host. I can't do the polls for whatever reason. I might have to leave and come back. But
Being silly, yeah.
yeah. But you should be able to just close the polling and then share the results with everybody.
All right. We've got just a few more. We're missing 9 more. We've got some undecided voters out there.
9 out of 45.
It's probably just like tomorrow.
All right, guys. We'll leave it open for a few more seconds. All right. I'm going to wrap it up, okay?
Okay.
Tom is joining us. Okay, so with 37 votes, the top vote getter was Hiram Shorey, the saloon owner. Unfortunately, that was not correct. So if you voted for Harry Ruggles, the printer, you are one of the 5 people who got the question correct.
I think Greg Yank knew too much.
There you go, guys.
Wow.
So, you know,
Greg
you
probably
can
knew it.
Venmo your fine into the club, or you can make a generous donation via a check.
So alternative C wasn't the answer.
All right, John Bailey, are you ready to tell us about makeups?
I am. start off with Cynthia Doyle had a makeup for Cub Scouts training. Dave Rothschild had one for Habitat for Humanity. Casey Sharvin had one for the district event. David Vale had one for the Nyan Virtual Exchange Committee. Carm Wagamot had one for the PAC 47 committee meeting. And Greg Yank had one for presentation to the Rotary International Board of Adult Harassment Policy. And that's all we had.
Great. Thank you so much, John. And as you know, if you watch our meeting on Facebook after it's aired, or if you do an e-club meeting, those are great options for makeups if you're unable to log in on Zoom, as well as if you attend any of the socials we have or do anything to support the club or the district. So don't forget that there's lots of opportunities out there for makeups. All right, so today's Veterans Day presentation, I'm really sad that Tom's not here because he worked so hard to pull this together, and he got some really great guys with some great backgrounds, and they're going to be here to talk today about their experience as military pilots serving our country. So let's welcome all three, please. Dale Yonker, Richard Costco, and Keith Hawkins.
Hello.
Okay, so Dale, you're going to tell us a little bit about your experience.
Okay, I'll start off and basically, since there are three of us talking, I'll make a shortened version of it. Can everyone hear okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Good. So I went through pilot training in 1965 in Arizona. And then my first airplane out of pilot training was the F4. I brought a model for those of you not in the Air Force to see what an F4 looks like. Oh, there you go. Good. They put one up. That's great. My training, F4 training, was in Arizona at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson. And then my first assignment was down in the panhandle of Florida at Eglin Air Force Base, where we put together a squadron of F4D. The D was kind of the second generation of pilots, of airplanes that the Air Force purchased. It was originally a Navy airplane. And then from Eglin, we flew, the whole squadron flew to Ubon, Thailand. We had 16 airplanes in one flight heading over. Took us a couple of days, 3 days to get over there. And then we were at the base, one of two F4 bases in Thailand. The other three were F105, or excuse me, the other two were F105 bases. And then down in the southern part of Thailand was a base for KC-135s and B-52s. We flew 3 different kinds of missions out of Ubon, Thailand. Our primary mission was the bombing missions called Rolling Thunder, which you may have heard of. And then our second mission was what we called MiG-Cap, where we would fly with the F-105s to keep the MiGs off of the F-105s. And then finally, the third type of mission was what we called interdiction of supply routes. The routes went from North Vietnam down into South Vietnam through Laos, and so many of our missions were interdicting the supplies that were coming down from there. To fly a mission up north for bombing, we needed support from the air refueling, the KC-135s, because we had to refuel both going in and coming out. And then if there was a what we call the SAR mission, which means a search and air rescue mission, then we would not refuel coming out. We would land at Udor, the North F4 base, for refueling and save the tanker fuel for the people pulling pilots out of the jungle. After 8 months, I got over there in June of 1966 and left in February of 67. We could leave after 100 missions in North Vietnam. And the breakout was, I had 35 over up north into the, what we call the Package 6 area. And then the rest of my 65 were in the rest of Vietnam, not Package 6. And then 38 in Laos, working that thing. So the F-105s had the hardest mission, but we did supply quite a few missions for them. Some of our missions had as many as 80 airplanes in a single mission going through. Last mission that I had was my 100th Kep Airfield in right north of Hanoi. And then that was in February of 67. And then, excuse me, February of 68. And then a month later, they called the bombing halt, where it allowed North Vietnam to resupply because they were getting pretty well beat down by the time that my missions ended. So that's all. And my missions after that were to be a T-38 instructor pilot down in Georgia, Moody Air Force Base. And then I finally ended up, after some rated supplement jobs, in the C-141 in New Jersey at McGuire Air Force Base for 5 years. So that's about all I have to say. I can answer any questions.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. And then, so we have also Richard Costco. He's going to tell us about his time as a C-5 pilot. If any of you have seen the C-5s flying around, I don't know if they fly around here as much as they used to, but those are some big planes. So Richard, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Oh, great, great. Well, I was kind of given I guess a broad brush of my military career. I'll get to the C-5 eventually, but I wanted to thank Tom. It is regrettable that he can't be here because he recruited Dale and I, and it would have been nice to have had him to be with us. Maybe he is on Zoom, but the other thing, when I contacted Dave Plocker about information, I said, who am I going to be talking to? Are these civilians? Do I have to change it? And he said, hey, we have lots of military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. So if you don't understand what I'm talking about, because sometimes I don't, you can turn to one of your buddies and say, here's how it is, here's the truth. But getting on with the show, so to speak, I'm a product of the Air Force ROTC, St. Joseph's College in Philadelphia. It's kind of funny because 4 of us, Fallon had gone to St. Joseph's. I think Bob Kaufman there, and myself, and Bill Hengler lives in Lebanon, and Tony Nadia, who passed there last year or so, he was also a St. Joe grad. It was a land lease school, so mandatory ROTC. And for me, it was great that it was Air Force because I always wanted to be a pilot. So graduated in June of 63, and Dale was an instructor there, but not when I got there. So I went to Moody Air Force Base in Georgia and flew from December 63 to December 64, just about. It was a 55-week program. And the only thing that it all stands out, but the big historical event, our first week in ground school, aviation physiology, Friday about just before lunch, a sergeant busts into the room and says, "The president's been shot." So this was Kennedy's assassination. And boy, did it stand out for a 23-year-old second lieutenant in the Air Force. I really thought the Cubans or Ruskies were going to come on over and we were going to go toe to toe. But as we know, that wasn't the case. So the other thing that was kind of dynamic for me, our class was the first at Moody to fly. Now this is our patch. I don't know if it's upside down in there too, but it said 65D mock busters. We're the first class at Moody to get the T-38 Talon. And let's see if this one's any better. It was, we used to call it the White Rocket. That baby really performed. The initial T-37, you kind of soloed in that and got to know what you're doing, and then went on to the T-38, and that was more advanced. And as my Air Force career progressed, I went to the C-124 at Charleston Air Force Base, South Carolina. I had a year tour in Vietnam as a forward air controller. I got a gung-ho picture here I'll share with you. So that was the forward air controller, Dick Costco, and his trusty 01 Bird Dog. And that was, I think, my Feeney flight. That would be probably late November of 67. That airplane, the day I left Vietnam, it had a midair with a helicopter. It was eventually repaired, but I thought, wow, the machine didn't make it, but I did. After Vietnam, I went to the C-141 at Charleston Air Force Base, South Carolina, and that was a really performing airplane. Flew around the world basically, well, most of the way around the world. And then the big event in my life, like we said, was the C-5. Just skipping ahead, after the C-5, I flew the T-39 Saberliner at Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina. And then I was a part-time pilot, the C-9s here at Scott, the AirVac mission, which was most rewarding. But then again, our country was pretty rich back then that they could have an airline just to help veterans and active duties go to the various hospitals. So that was quite a privilege to fly those missions. But getting back to the good stuff, whatever that might be, I was selected in 1970 to be one of the original C-5 pilots. We were in the 8th class. Pardon me, I think something happened here. What was that? Oh, there we go. Pardon me while I try to find myself again. Okay, I was in the 8th class of the C-5. Now, I'm not too big on this, but let me try to switch it over. Okay, that's a model of the C-5. And the thing that was impressive about it, it's the largest military aircraft, maybe in the United States. I know the Russians have an Antonov 228 or so that's like 6-engine jobber and all. But that was a C-5, the original fun airplane, the C-124, excuse me, get my fingers out of it. C-124 was like the first jumbo airplane, but it was a prop. It was unpressurized. It flew low and slow, but it was the transition between props and jets. And I really had a great career flying it. The things I saw and the places I went, it was phenomenal. The biggest one, if you ever saw the movie High and the Mighty with John Wayne, had a similar experience going from the Philippines to Guam. And we were, only time I ever said Mayday and called for help. We had 2 engines that were almost, well, they were burning. And we finally got them shut down, got the fires out, and eventually, I'll find this other button here. I made an emergency landing at Guam, Anderson Air Force Base, with the help of quite a few people, but they had rescue out, all kinds of stuff. And it always happened at midnight, right? So it was dark and you could see all the flares and whatnot, but we got there safe and sound. But on the C-124, when you went from Charleston to Vietnam and back to Charleston, we had the stage program where you got the airplane there, turned it over to another crew, went to crew rest. You would pick the next one up and go outbound. So it took about 15 days to go from Charleston to Vietnam, back to Charleston. And honestly, you would log 100 to 110 hours. That was phenomenal flying. When I got into C-141, it cut down about 5 or 6 days and 40 some hours. C5, kind of similar, but I really digress. So here we go. I'm out of the C-141s, the C-124s, into the C5. As I said, it was the largest military airplane. It weighed, a fun fact, as much as the C-141 weighed. That was just a fuel load in the C5, 318,000 pounds. So fully loaded, when I flew it back in the 70s, it was 769,000 pounds. And I only flew it that way a couple times. And it had 28 landing gear, 4 on the nose and 24 on the mains on trucks. And it could carry, this was the PA stuff, 6 Greyhound buses or 58 Cadillacs, but really, it was really designed to carry like large helicopters and Army tanks. We went down to Fort Hood and practiced loading Army tanks and things like that. And I was in it 2 years operationally, and then they sent me to a training squadron, which is famous, the Transition Training Unit at good old Altus Air Force Base in Oklahoma. And I was there for 7 years. I went there as a captain, made lieutenant colonel by that time, and then I went on to the rest of my military career, as I said, Shaw Air Force Base and the T-39 and on to Scott, and had a wonderful career. My wife, Dolores, and I were originally from Pennsylvania. We were married in August '66. Like a month after we got married, I got my orders for Vietnam. So we had a wonderful life together. We have 4 children, 11 grandchildren. In fact, our 10th grandkiddo turned 13 today. So there was only one more to go for teenager time. But I retired here at Scott in 1987. And I went to the airlines for about 12 years, and then with Flight Safety International in St. Louis as a C9 and T-39 Saberliner instructor, and I retired full-time in 2009. And this is a broad view of Richard Costco's military career. The big thing is the wonderful people you meet in the military and the privilege of serving your country and flying some fantastic pieces of machinery. That was really great. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Happy Veterans Day to all you veterans out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that is really, first of all, thank you so much. I mean, every single stage just amazing. Thank you. And stick around. We will allow for questions at the end. All right. So up next, Honey, are you there? You've got to unmute yourself.
Okay. Is it on?
That thing is on. Yes.
Okay. Well, hello, and thank you, Rotary, for having me today. It was great listening to.
Hold on. I got to introduce you.
Okay. I thought you said we were ready.
I would also like to introduce Keith Hawkins. He is a retired pilot. His last plane he flew was a KC-135. Now you can talk.
Oh, now, okay.
So is he your brother, Tanya?
Pardon?
Is he your brother?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's my husband.
There you go. We all want to know that.
Hello, Rotary, and thank you for having me today to speak a little bit about my Air Force career. I came along a little bit later after the 2 previous gentlemen, but I recognize many of those planes were still flying when I came along, and some of them are still flying nowadays. Anyhow, like Richard, I also am a product of ROTC at Duke University, where I graduated and commissioned in the Air Force in 1994. I am I'm actually a cradle to grave Air Force person. I was born in an Air Force hospital. I was born at Myrtle Beach Air Force Base. My dad was a 1967 graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. And I was born shortly after he came back from Vietnam. He flew F-100s in Vietnam, and then he was an A-7 test pilot after that. And then he spent most of his career doing staff work as a studies and analysis officer. Anyhow, so I graduated and commissioned in 1994. At the time, that was the drawdown, the bottom of the drawdown from the first Gulf War. As such, I didn't get a pilot training slot coming out of ROTC. So I had to, I went on active duty. My first duty assignment was as a officer, a ground officer in a KC-10 squadron. And for those who don't know, that's what a KC-10 looks like there. That's the bigger air refueling tanker. It's got 3 engines, one on each wing, and then one on the tail. So I did staff work and duties there. While I was there, that's when I actually started my own flying, my civilian flying. At first, I flew a Piper Warrior. So that's what a Piper Warrior looks like. And then eventually I started flying a Cessna as well. I've only got about 30, 35 hours in each of those. After a couple of years, I then went to Tinker Air Force Base. I was at Travis Air Force Base out in California with the KC-10s. Then I went to Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, where I was an AWACS crew member. The AWACS does radar support for all the coalition forces. For those who aren't familiar, that's what a AWACS airplane looks like. So once again, I was still not a pilot at this time. I was in the back as a crew member. I did duties as what we call a weapons director, and then as an air surveillance officer. Eventually, this whole time I had been applying to go to pilot training. I was eventually selected to go to pilot training. I went to Columbus Air Force Base in Columbus, Mississippi. At that time, we were still flying the T-37s, just like my other colleagues. However, by that time, I did not fly the T-38. I flew the T-1 Jayhawk. So I then graduated pilot training. My first duty assignment as a pilot then, I got stationed at Stuttgart Army Airfield in Stuttgart, Germany, flying the C-21. The C-21 was is a military version of a Learjet 35. This was the follow-on plane to the plane that Richard flew, which was the T-39 Saberliner. So this was the replacement that we replaced it in the mid to late 80s, C-21. Many of you might be familiar with that because all the C-21s that are left are stationed here at Scott Air Force Base right now, and you'll see them flying around quite a bit. So I was there for about 2.5 years. That was when September 11th happened. We were all set to support operations in Turkey for the northern front of the war there in Iraq. And then at the last minute, Turkey said they weren't going to allow operations through their country. So I didn't get to support that stuff at first. After that is when I went to the KC-135. That's the air refueling tanker that we have hundreds and hundreds of. They're all over. We, of course, have also a guard unit here at Scott Air Force Base that flies KC-135s as well. I went to the active duty base at Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane, Washington. By the time I got there, the Iraq war was going hot and heavy. So I deployed quite a bit over to operations there in Iraq and Afghanistan. I ended up with almost 700 hours, 7 air medals, flying missions over top of Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, flying the tanker, we would never land in country. We would always take off and land from airfields outside the country. So even though I have all those hours over top of Iraq and Afghanistan, I've never actually set foot in either country. So, and that's just fine with me. So after flying the 135 there at Fairchild, I then went to Altus Air Force Base as well, which was the schoolhouse. I spent 3 years as an instructor teaching new pilots to fly the KC-135 at Altus Air Force Base. By that time, I got selected to do some more special duty between my instructor time and my previous time in a C-21. I got selected to fly, by the way, There's a good picture. Oh, KC-135 refueling. After that, I got to do a special duty assignment. I flew a VIP aircraft at Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii, what we military call a C-37, which is a military version of a Gulfstream 5. And that's what that looks like there. And funny enough, that is the actual airplane I flew, 10065. There's only a handful of these aircraft in the whole inventory to begin with, and so we only had one airplane stationed at Hawaii, and 10065 was our plane. So that's the plane that I flew there in Hawaii. We supported the PACAF commander, the Pacific Air Force commander. We supported the PACOM, who was typically a Navy admiral. But mostly the time while I was there, we supported the Korea Forces commander. So I spent a lot of time flying to and from Korea and Washington, D.C., supporting operations there. We got right towards the end of my time in the Air Force, and then I came here to Scott Air Force Base. They needed instructors for the C-21 unit that had recently moved, or the C-21 schoolhouse, I should say. There was already a unit here, but they moved the schoolhouse here, and they needed instructors. So I had previous instructor experience, and so they brought me here. And so my last 18 months were here at Scott Air Force Base with the C-21 unit. And I retired 6 years ago this month in November of 2014. It's hard to believe I've already been retired for 6 months. I started with Delta Airlines shortly after that. For 4 years, I flew the Airbus 321 with Delta, based out of New York. For the last year, I flew the bigger version, the Airbus A350, out of Detroit. And then just as of yesterday, I have gone back to flying the smaller plane, the 320. So anyhow, hopefully that covered everything for the various aircraft that I flew in my career so far. And anyhow, thank you for having me. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. So one question I have for Dale is, Dale, can you tell us a little bit about flying the F4 as far as what was your most memorable experience with that?
There's actually two questions out there. Number one, the F4 flies like a big, heavy T-38. Really a fast airplane. It goes Mach 2, can go up to 50,000 feet pretty easily. It held the climb to 40,000 foot record for many years until we came along with the F-15. The missions, one of the questions here was how many MiG fights did we get into? And I don't remember the exact count, but I think it was around 5. Some of them were a lot shorter than others. Some were just the MiGs would come and try to break up a bombing run. And so one time I was looking out at a MiG 17 coming at us, and I could see the red fireballs coming out of the barrels, which told me he was aiming straight at us, which when he's coming a beam, those are all going to go behind us. So that was pretty memorable that he didn't know how to pull lead. Fortunately for us, that kept us going, and he did not break us up. Some of the other ones that lasted more than a minute or two involved MiGs that would be in what we call a defensive. Their defensive posture was to fly around in a circle at level altitude, and they called it the wagon wheel. And an F4 that would get down in the circle with those MiGs was going to be doomed, because MiG-17 can outturn a F4. So the F4's advantage is to go vertical. And so if you pull up and head straight up, the MiG will chase you up there. Then he'll run out of airspeed and altitude before you do, and then you're able to shoot him down on the way down. But fortunately, we were never shot down by a MiG, and also we were never successful in shooting down a MiG, because most of the time we were shooting missiles that were just inside the range of being an effective weapon. Later on, after I flew the F-4, the missiles became a lot more capable, and we were able to shoot down a lot more MiGs. But in the whole statistics of the war, the MiG shot down a lot of Air Force airplanes. So it was, I would say we won overall, but they caused a lot of damage to us. And those are probably my most exciting missions.
Thank you. Real quick, wanted to read a couple of.
Joe. I have a question if you have time, or we can wait afterwards.
I was just going to read a couple of comments. We had several people that really enjoyed your presentations and thanking you for your service. So just wanted to highlight that real quick before. And Rich, you had a question? Sorry.
Just real quick, and I agree with all those. Thank you all three for your service. My question is for Dale, and probably very short because we're running short of time here. But you mentioned 2 F-4 locations in Thailand. Was the Navy flying F-4s at the same time the Air Force was? And also, can you tell me when the laser-guided weapons were introduced into the war? I'm sure it was a little bit after you were there, but laser-guided or bomb?
It was, I think those came in probably late 60s. That's my guess, late 60s, early 70s. And the Navy was flying A7s and A4s and A6s when I was over there. They had already phased out the F4Bs. I think they still had some in the U.S., but in combat, their workhorse was the A4 and the A7.
Thank you.
All right. Richard, did you have anything additional that you wanted to highlight about your experience with the C-5? That is just a huge plane. It just shocked me.
It was. I forgot that I was very prominent in initial C-5 air refueling, so kind of blew that off. But when the C-5 came along, it had air refueling capability, but nobody to fly them. So military airlift command finally said, we're going to train some instructors and we're going to be there. And I was one of the original 7 instructors. So we used to get a kick, the original 7 astronauts, the Mercury guys. So we were the original 7. But we did, well, I was there for 7 years, air refueling, a lot of fun. But one of the little things, Dick Scobie, who regrettably was killed when the shuttle blew up, but he was a squadron mate of mine. And he and another test pilot from Edwards came to Altus to get, show us how to do it. But first they wanted to get up to speed on emergencies. So I was privileged to take them through our simulator, which was quite, at the time, was like dazzling state-of-the-art stuff. And it was a lot of fun running these guys who were test pilots through the emergencies on the C-5. And just one of the nice memories of my Air Force career. There were lots of them, but who wants to talk forever to old guys? So
well, we actually enjoy it, but thank you.
Oh, you bet, you bet. One of my favorites on Shakespeare, Henry V, where he has his famous, we banded, we few, we happy few, we banded brothers. Well, further down in it, he talks about an old men will remember with advantages their services. So I guess I'm remembering with a lot of advantages.
If I may, a quick comment for Keith. I started my pilot training also at Columbus, Mississippi, but in 1955. And I flew the PA-18, a Piper Cub, and the T-6.
Is this Ed True? Was that Ed?
That was me, yeah. Yes, that was Ed.
I just have a book. I just have a book about the T6 I want to share with you, but that's another time. Medallions or something.
I'll swap stories with you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Keith, if you could unmute yourself, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Keith, can you tell everyone about supporting the space shuttle mission? That's not something many people know about.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the missions when we flew C-21s in Europe was to support space shuttle launches. There's a whole list of all sorts of military operations that go on that support the space shuttle launch back when space shuttles were going. So and it would break down by the second. So as a space shuttle would take off for the first 30 seconds or so, if they had to abort the mission, the capsule would detach from the space shuttle and they would land somewhere out in the Atlantic Ocean, and there would be a Navy ship stationed every 50 miles out in the Atlantic Ocean, so that if they had to abort the mission, they would come down at that point. And then at some point, I forget the exact timing, but between about 40 seconds and about 60 something seconds, if they had to abort the mission, they would keep going, and then they would land at the old Zaragoza airfield in Spain. And then if they had to keep going further, there was a airfield out in Mongolia. And if they had to go further, then they would try and land in Australia. Otherwise, they would try and come back to the Mojave Desert and to Edwards Air Force Base. But there was a whole string of events that would go on, but we would support the operations in Zaragoza, Spain. So every time there was a space shuttle launch, well, there would be about 100 and something people that would go down there. I mean, there would be cops, and military police to support it. There would be weathermen to do the weather. There would be communications people to set up all the comms. There would be firemen to provide fire support. I mean, there was a whole gamut of everybody that was there. We would bring in a C-21 because on the day of the launch, one of the shuttle astronauts would come in. And what we would do is right before the launch would take off from the Cape, we would go with the shuttle astronaut. So there would be an instructor pilot. So I would be sitting in the left seat as an instructor pilot. I'd have the shuttle astronaut sitting in the right seat with me. And then I'd have my co-pilot sitting behind us just as backup. But we would fly the perimeter of the airfield, make sure that there was nothing out of the usual. We would check the clouds. We would check the lights on the airfield, make sure everything was working. And then we would fly what we call a simulated shuttle approach, which obviously would not be a normal approach in an airplane. We would go up to about 20,000 feet. We'd put the gear down and all the flaps down, and we would come down at a very, very steep angle to simulate like the space shuttle was landing. And we would do this with the shuttle astronaut on board. And then we were tied in through communications back through the Cape and through Houston. And so we were listening to all that stuff live on our headsets while we were flying around. And so they would count down the shuttle launch, 10, 9, 8, launch and everything. And then we'd be listening to a launch control as the sequence of events would go through. And so when it would get to about 40 seconds, they'd be like, all right, Zaragoza, you're on the hook, da 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 da. And then when it would get to about 60 something seconds, they'd be like, all right, Zaragoza, you're off the hook. So for those 20 something seconds, if anything went wrong with the shuttle, they were going to land at Zaragoza, Spain. But after those 20 something seconds, all that work we'd done for an entire week was over, and then we all just packed up and went home. But it was awesome listening to the live shuttle launch on my own headset with a no kidding NASA astronaut in the seat next to me.
That's wonderful. Any other questions? I'm trying to see everybody so I can scroll through. If you've got a question, raise your hand. Not seeing anybody asking. Well, guys, I want to thank you again. First of all, thank you for your service. And thank you so much for joining our club today. Our Veterans Day presentation is one of the best in the area. And even though it's on Zoom this year, we really appreciate it. We appreciate you guys bringing your photos and your memories and your stories. We hope you'll consider joining the Rotary Club again for another meeting and maybe even becoming a regular member. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys. Okay, so we'll move on to club announcements real quick.
I have one, Tanya.
Yes.
It's Salvation Army bell ringing time again. That's the 12th and the 19th of December at Sam's and Walmart. I'll be sending out a P-mail to everybody. Appreciate the support. The need is still there. The Salvation Army, of course, has been hurt like everybody else with the COVID thing. A second thing is the matching points for Polio Plus. Those do not count for your Every Rotarian Every Year and sustaining membership, because those donations, Every Rotarian Every Year and sustaining membership, have to go to the annual fund. So if you can either send your donation to me with a check at you can get my address off the DACB, or if you want to do it by card through the Rotary, make sure that the accompanying form says annual fund, or it won't count. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, if you need help with Zoom, don't forget, Grayson is our digital guy. He's our guru. So feel free to give him a call. His name and number and everything is on DAC, along with his email address. And he's happy to set up a time to meet with you and kind of go over things to really improve your experience. Wanted to congratulate our virtual Halloween costume contest winners. Bob?
Yeah, a lot of happy kids. I went around to their homes on Saturday and delivered $75 and one $100 gift certificate to the winners, and a lot of smiles on these young kids. I'm sure the gift certificates were very much appreciated. I might mention that we did not have any photos of family pets that were entered in the costume contest. So we have a Peel's gift certificate for $50 that was not presented to anyone. So if anyone would like to purchase that gift certificate for $50, please give me a call and I'll get it to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, if I don't hear from anybody.
Actually,
Hey,
Bob,
Rich, and let Rich send in his picture. He'll win it hands down.
we did have a winner, Bob. Allie emailed us about the submission we had. So we did have someone submit, so we need to get with her on that. She emailed last night about that.
Oh, okay. I'll get with her and I'll deliver this. Thanks.
I tried, Rich.
It was a good, very successful event.
Thank you, Bob, and thanks for putting that together. Yeah, Bill Chaplin posted a picture of his dog dressed as a candidate. So if anybody wants to vote for Bill or his dog tomorrow, that may be an option. All right. Don't forget that we are still taking signups for the November 21st Super Sorter event at the food pantry. Larry Strube is coordinating that. You do have the ability to sign up with your preferred time via a Google sign-up sheet. It's a link that was in your weekly newsletter, so please make sure that you're checking that. He needs about 10 to 15 volunteers per set per time frame. Larry, are you on?
Larry, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Appreciate the plug. Yeah, things are looking great for Scouting for Food. And, you know, again, we're doing the sign up to try and get a handle on the number of people who will be working, because we are limited based on the latest COVID directions from the state. So appreciate all the help from the Rotary Club.
We've probably got about, I would say probably 10 volunteers so far. So there's still plenty of room to sign up. So take a look at your calendar and see which time on that Saturday you'll be available to help out.
This is Jerry. The problem with signing up on your link is you've got to have a Google email address. So, and some of us don't have that. So Larry put me down. I don't care which one.
You don't have to have
Okay,
a
Jerry.
Google email address to use the form.
Yeah, you do.
Hey, this is Drew. Put me down as well. Either one.
All right, don't forget that the membership drive is continuing to go on. So we have until the end of the year. The person who brings in the most new members could win 500 Paul Harris points towards your Paul Harris Fellow. No meeting next week in observance of Veterans Day, so we'll see you the following week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Anything else? All right, Grayson. Good meeting. You're muted.
Uh-oh.